So we're here in the switch room of the water filtration plant of the hotel here in Cancun. We're going to be connecting MCM to the high pressure feed pump, which we know is taking about 60 amps or so. We're using the IEKG complete kit of parts. So in the box over here we have the MCM unit fitted with the appropriate circuit breakers and fuses and so on. And over here we have split core current transformers. Joe here is just pre-wiring a couple of those, and we've got the tools that you require to go with it. So a snap-on ammeter and voltmeter, cables with crocodile clips or alligator clips if you're based over here, and communications cables. There you go.
Okay, so a brief introduction into the test equipment. The first thing is the MCM box. What we have is a plastic enclosure with an MCM pre-installed. We have 3 breakers for the voltage connections. We have a single pole breaker for the power connection. We have 3 shorting links for the CTs. We have ports on the side of the box, one for the power, another one for the voltage, another one for the CTs, and another one to connect the MOXA unit. Here we have the power cable, then we have our voltage connections. We're going to do some tests before we start with the voltage and current. We have connection cables for the MOXA and the unit itself, and we've wired the CTs across connection 1 and 2. This selects 100 amps as our primary. So the first test we're going to do is just to check whether we've got the exact amps and volts that we're expecting. So the first thing we're going to clamp on with this meter. You see we've selected, in this case we have an expected around about 60 amps. So we've selected 400 as our test. And we're going to connect around the cable. So we're going to connect on here. And we can see that we're getting 57 amps. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we're going to select the voltage. We've selected voltage. We're on DC. We need to press the mode button to take it to AC. And now we're going to test the voltages. Now I'm going to connect across 2 of these phases now. I'm going to hang the meter off a suitable cable so we can read what it's saying. And if we zoom into the actual meter, we can see we've got 450 volts. So this is okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to connect the CTs. So as you can see, we have a CT cable and it has 3 pairs of cables. These are clearly marked as I11, I12, I21, I22 and I31, I32. Now, as mentioned previously, we've connected these across S1 and S2. There's a label on the side of the CT that we can read. It says that S1 is the common, and S2, S3 and S4 are to select different primaries. In this case our primary is 100 amps, so we've selected S2. What we're going to do is we're going to connect this CT cable to the unit and we're going to short the shorting links. Once we've done this, we're going to connect the CTs around the cables, and then when we power the unit up we will disconnect the shorting links. We now have 2 of the 3 CTs installed. The important thing in installing the CTs, we don't need the unit to be isolated to install the CTs, but what is absolutely necessary is to close the shorting links. As you can see here, when the shorting links are closed, they say open, they say test. If we close and make the connection live, you'll actually see the I11, I12 pairs shown. We'll show this in a bit more detail once we've installed the 3rd one.
So we're now going to install the 3rd CT, just to show you how it's done. These are split core CTs, so there's a section that comes off, detaches completely, which allows it to be slipped simply over the cable. And having slipped the CT over the cable, the cap then screws on with a couple of thumb screws, As you put the cap in place, you can feel the magnetic field pulsing through the CT. The cap's gently vibrating until it gets screwed tight down when it feels smooth. And just to repeat the point, these two cables, the outputs from the CT, follow down this cable here and into the connection on the side of the unit, come into these shorting links here.
Our next stage in the process is to fit the voltage connections. It's really important that you isolate the power before you connect the voltages. In this case, this would be done with this switch. So what we would do is we would isolate this. Now, your voltage connections come with several types of connection. We can connect into terminals or we can clip. You've been supplied with alligator clips. What we're going to do in this case, we're going to connect the alligator clip to these connections on the incoming supply. Note that we're using the common supply. It doesn't make any difference whether we connect to the common supply or the individual cable going to the machine. Okay, so here we see the voltages now connected. We've re-energized the power supply. We've got the voltages connected to one to each phase. Cable then running down to our box. Connector screwed in. We still have the power connections isolated. We're not ready to power up yet.